Covers, the show for readers and writers and lovers of books. I'm Stephanie, and I'm a publisher at Red Penguin Books. We publish books of all types and genres. So whether you have a manuscript all ready to go, maybe a book in your head, or maybe even 300 sheets of loose leaf shoved in a drawer. And yes, we do take loose leaf that has been shoved in a drawer. Please visit redpenguinbooks.com and unleash your inner author. I am ecstatic today to be joined by a huge panel of writers who have unleashed themselves multiple times over. But what I'm most excited about their writing is what they have done with the Red Penguin Collection. The Red Penguin Collection just released our ninth book, Stand Out, and Stand Out is the best of the Red Penguin Collection. And you can see a whole little pile of books there. I have a pile of books on my lap here. Twice a month, we have been releasing a new book on a different topic, whether it's science fiction, horror, growing up, spirituality, etc. And we have authors, poets, and playwrights from around the world who have been submitting to the Red Penguin Collection so that we can feature their works. And our latest standout, the best of the Red Penguin Collection, was just released. So I am so thrilled to be joined by, wow, quite the panel of authors and playwrights and poets here. And how many of you have a pile of books on your lap too? We're all sitting here, right? We've got a huge pile of books because many of you have been in multiple books by now. So your families can blame me, you having too many things on your pile here. But what I would love to do is to introduce you one at a time. We're going to have time to chat, but just so that our audiences can meet you and know you and love you, because I've already gotten to read you and know you and love you. Our first guest is going to be David Lange. Colonel David Lange was born and grew up on Long Island, New York. A graduate of the United States Air Force Academy, he served for 30 years as an active duty officer in the United States Air Force before retiring in 2018. Colonel Lange is a decorated combat veteran and flew numerous combat support, and humanitarian relief missions during his career. He was awarded the prestigious Institute of Navigation Superior Achievement Award in recognition of his lifelong accomplishments as a practicing navigator. David loves sharing stories of hope and inspiration, and in 2020, he published his memoir, Quest, My Journey Through La Mancha. And David has also been featured. David is in every single one of our books in the Red Penguin Collection?
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for all of that fabulous writing and for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here with distinguished guests and
friends.
friends.
And wait until you hear. I mean, goodness, I have 4 pages of bios here. But I started with my Air Force colonel. So tell me a little bit how you got into writing in the first place.
I always loved writing. I mean, it's something I did ever since I was a kid, in fact, and I don't want to take up too much time, so we've got a lot of terrific people here with great stories to tell, but I will tell you just a week ago, in fact, for the New Year's, I had this binder that I've had ever since literally the early 70s of everything I ever wrote, and I put it in this 3-ring binder. And it grew and grew till eventually it outstuffed the binder. So I just kept stuffing stuff behind things and didn't even put it in the binder. And then a week ago, I decided finally I was going to go back and organize it. And so I did. And there's stuff going back, again, to the early mid 70s there that, I wrote as a kid. So I was writing stories and poems and stuff when I was really young. And so I finally organized it, put dates on all this stuff. Some of it I'd actually written dates, but anyway, that's it. And actually I didn't put it in the binder yet, but when I was in kindergarten, first grade, I wrote a 6-book series called The Adventures of Pilot Joe that I gave to my mom as illustrated stories about this, young boy who wanted to be a pilot. And then it progressed. He grew up and went on all these cool adventures and stuff. But I've always loved creating. I always loved writing. During elementary school, I loved the creative writing aspect. I loved writing stories. I loved writing poems. So I did that all throughout school. My friends used to, I used to like write a lot of humorous kind of stories when I was a kid. And so, as you get older, you get busy, you start doing stuff. So some of that kind of faded. So really, the anthology has been just such a wonderful opportunity for me to sort of go back and revisit, just some of those off topics. The memoir I wrote, and that was great. And usually I write short stories with sort of a moral or theme with things related to my life, but it was really fun for me to sort of stretch back out and do some stuff that I haven't done since I was a kid, science fiction and a horror story and the poetry as well, for the holiday volume. So for me, it was just a wonderful opportunity to just really, as you mentioned, it's almost like a writing prompt. It's sort of a challenge to see, can I do this? And again, I don't necessarily anticipate these things will be accepted, but for me, I just love writing. So it was fun to try. And I honestly feel very honored and appreciative to JK for, accepting these works into these books. So I'm certainly pretty proud of those. It's been fun to share it with families, but I consider it a great honor because, again, we have a lot of just fantastic authors who have been contributing to these anthologies. So it's been fun for me. I love the writing part of it. And again, it's just neat to be part of these great anthologies.
David, could you please share? Because I know a lot about your journaling, and you know that I am beyond dazzled because we who work with writers are constantly saying, "Oh, you should keep a journal and blah 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 blah." And I never did. I wish I did. But you are to me the king of journaling. Can you talk a little bit about your journals?
Yeah, sure. I started them in 1982. So I was about 15 when I started it, 15, 16, right in there. And I've been going ever since. So I literally have over 10,000 pages of journal entries dating back to, the early teen period. So I really, I frequently look back upon them, because it's nice to sort of see where I've been and to, revisit some of the challenges and some of the difficult times I had and find, and hear myself in my own words, as a 16-year-old or 25-year-old or 35-year-old, or sitting in a tent. I'm Desert Storm writing from a tent about to go fly a combat mission. These are raw feelings at the time that you just can't recreate. Now would have a different perspective if you look at it today. But I love looking back and seeing, okay, what was in my mind? What was I thinking? What was I feeling at that time? So again, it's like I said, over 10,000 pages of journal entries, pretty much non-continuous from August of 1982 to current. I still, write all the time in my diary.
I'm telling you, you are my hero when it comes to journaling. And I only wish I could keep a journal for more than 3 days. And you've kept it up for years and decades and decades.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you enough for treating our anthology theme books as a writing prompt, and you've been knocking it out of the park. Absolutely. Our next guest, Christ Kennedy, is as a French Quebecois who failed English Lit in the 11th grade. He is now proud to own enough air guitars and bugbear, bait, and growth hormones to fill imagination's warehouse. He steals the manners of fools to feed his pen, then writes what prose the muses could only plagiarize. Sesquipedalitating whenever he neologistates, he keeps a unique word count as a benchmark and lets rhythm flow into his prose. With a bachelor's of engineering as a tool to guide him, he is developing the science of theological engineering into an iconoclastic art of reason. Well, Christ, I must say, you have the fanciest of the bios, the one that had to be practiced. So nice to have you on with us today.
I have to say those two words that seem to not fall off the lips so easily, the sesquipedaliating when I neologisticate. Were a combination of words that was a lot of practice to actually produce those words and come up with them for a while ago.
I'll bet they were, and in my notes that I'm looking at, I actually broke them up, so I have sesquip Fideliating neologisticates, written like that. I don't think I've broken up a word like that since maybe the fifth grade. So thank you for stretching that muscle of mine.
It's good to practice.
It is good to practice. Thank you. And thank you for stretching our vocabularies.
Well, yeah, I've been working on a lot of computer writing and software engineering and stuff. And one of my plans for my future projects is to write a compilation of all neologisms by turning, yeah, neologisms are like words that are invented, right? So make a computer program that's a neologism identifier, is like a dictionary for neologisms, would be like a dictionary that would it would figure out whether the word exists or not already. And if it doesn't already exist, then yes, it is a neologism. So it's a plan of mine. I think I'll put it together eventually and probably market it on the internet and make a huge fortune out of it.
A real love of linguistics over here. I think that's fabulous.
Yeah, I got to keep trying. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about you and your writing journey.
So writing started as journalism, not journalism, but journaling, as our previous guest was talking about. I started journaling when I was in college, and it really helped a lot, the creativity and the ability to write, because at that time I was in college and the creative writing wasn't flowing so easily, and journaling really was a big help. It made it a lot easier to just describe things and put ideas together and organize thoughts. And that was the start. That was a few years ago. That was like 20, 30 years ago now. And ever since then, I've been writing short stories, and every now and then I decide to sit down and write a novel and put the time into it and put that together. That, of course, is a very concentrated effort and takes a lot of work. But when the muses take hold, it is time to write, and you just sit down and get down to it and do all the writing that you need to do.
I love that, the muses. So what would you tell the other writers out there who want to figure out, how do I do this?
Well, we talked about this in the last show, the show that I was on earlier, like a few months ago, about journaling. It's really important to just sit down and to describe something. I mean, even if you don't have an idea for a story, but you want to do some creative writing, just looking out your window and describing what you see is a great way to start writing. You just use all the adjectives, and I love adjectives, and to be very descriptive and put ideas together on paper so that they're well organized and descriptive. It's just, you have to put a lot of thought into it. And if you organize your ideas beforehand, have a few words that you want to include in your text, and then you just order your thoughts numerically on a piece of paper in note form, that's how I do anyway. Organize your ideas and just start writing. That's my way anyway. That's my procedure. Just organize the ideas.
Spoken like a true engineer, that's for sure. I love the approach, like an engineer. That's fantastic. And hopefully some other like-minded people are getting from that and saying, I could do that. That's what
yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. That's all you got to do. Just sit down and decide, I want to do this, and then just go ahead and do it. If you decide you have an idea you want to write, just sit down and write. That's the best way to go. Just get onto it, get creative. Personally, I've had all kinds of different projects. Like I write computer software all the time just for my own leisure. I play with an Arduino. I do some drawing. I do some writing. And creativity is just like my entire day. And it's always something different. Like I'll weave a basket if I feel like it, or do a tattoo or something, or just draw something else. And it's always very creative, very different all the time. And that's the best way to be. I find, to just be creative all the time.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, our next guest, Debbie DeLuise, is an award-winning author and reference librarian at a public library on Long Island. She is a member of Sisters in Crime, International Thriller Writers, the Long Island Authors Group, and the Cat Writers Association. She's published 8 novels, including 4 books of her Cobble Cove cozy mystery series featuring Alicia the librarian and Sneaky the library cat. Debbie has also written 3 short ebooks featuring the Cobble Cove characters: Celebrating Christmas with My Characters, Sneaky's Christmas Mystery, which was the 2019 Muse Medallion Award winner from the Cat Writers Association, and Sneaky's Summer Mystery. Debbie lives on Long Island with her husband, Anthony, daughter, Holly, and 3 cats: Stripey, Harry, and Hermione. I must admit, before today, I didn't even know what her husband and daughter's name is, but Stripey, Harry, and Hermione, I knew their names, that's for sure.
Of course you do.
Welcome, Debbie, and thank you for joining us. And Hermione, oh, she ran off. She's being shy again. Huh?
They're running in and out. I'm freezing right now because my back door is partially open. We have an enclosed room, and they're going in and out, and it's not a cat door. So I'm freezing right now. But here she is now. She just heard her name, and she just came in.
You heard her name. I love that. So Hermione, if you want to come on the show, go right ahead. You're always.
I don't know. She's going to eat, I think.
Well, Debbie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And
it's been a pleasure.
Oh my gosh, it's such a pleasure to have your writing. And I know you're generally a novelist. Did you have a whole file cabinet filled with short stories also, or are these things coming out of your head as writing prompts?
Like I think I mentioned to you that I came across a lot of my old writing. Like David, I've been writing since I was, I think, in 2nd grade. I mean, maybe before that when I started to write. I've been writing a long time, and I've done various types of writing, from magazine articles, and pet publications, which I still write, some of the online. And I did have an article recently in Catster magazine, which was a 4-page spread. I was thrilled about that. So I write about my cats, but that's what I'm interested in. But I also write the novels, as you know. I've written the cozy mysteries. I've written thrillers. Most of them do have pets in them, even if they don't play a big role, but I do like to include cats, and sometimes dogs. I've had dogs also, but I grew up with cats and dogs, and now I just have cats. But I've also written a little poetry, as I was in your poetry collection. So I like to try different genres too, and the science fiction was a little different for me in your the science fiction anthology.
That was fabulous.
And I'm working on a project now that is a time travel novel, and it's something I wrote like 20 years ago. And it's some of the material I came across when I was home during the pandemic. I came across a lot as I was cleaning out my files. So I came across all these manuscripts, and this one had been done. This was, I had the printed version, but it had been, believe it or not, it had been done in like an old version, possibly Word Perfect, but I was able to get it into Word. So I had to reformat the whole thing, and I'm working on it. I have other things in notebooks that are short stories, other novels that are not on computer. But, I try to write the new stuff, but then I've gone back a little bit to the old stuff too. And it's like it's a different person who wrote it. I can't recall what I wrote. I mean, that was 20 years ago. And it's funny looking back. And while I know I have more experience now writing, and I can look at that old stuff and say, well, there were a lot of errors in it, but I could edit it. I find that it's different. It's something that I can work on. You know what I mean? I can edit it and update it. But it's still, it was when you're younger, you write differently, as you mature and as you advance and gain more experience. But you're writing from, the experience you've gained throughout your life. So you add more to it, but your writing changes. But it's just interesting to look back on it.
Absolutely. And I love that image of you having files that you're uncovering and what treasures. All of a sudden you stumble upon something. David just stumbled upon a binder. I'm hearing a children's book in that, David. There's what a way you're cleaning and finding fabulous stuff. Send it our way. Absolutely.
And Stephanie, you know that I did recently publish a new book, right? The book with my cats, my pet
Yes, the
books,
nonfiction book, right?
the nonfiction. Yeah, I don't know if you
Yes,
can
hold
see.
that up.
And these, my cats are on the cover. Well, two are no longer with us, but Harry and Hermione are there. Stripey's in there too. He's not on the cover, but he's in the book. I have full color photos. And the book is written about various cat issues, feline health issues, behavior issues, but told from the cat's point of view. And the material there was material that I found 20 years ago. And then the current material.
I love that, told from the cat's point of view. How often I wish I could ask my cat, so what's going on with you? Did you not like the food? What's, not having trouble sleeping? What is it?
I think when you have cats and you've been around them long enough, you can understand. You get to know what they're trying to tell you.
Right, exactly. Well, mine, you've seen pictures of mine. She's always telling me the same thing.
She's
hungry.
Adorable.
That's what she's always telling me. I'm hungry. And and that's why she looks the way she does. But that's okay. She's my angel, even if she is a little bit chubby around the corners. Our next guest, Jacqueline Bottenbley, has been a teacher for the past 24 years and has taught ages from infants through adults. She holds 9 teaching licenses and has been an avid, lifelong reader and will read just about anything. Watch out, I might hold you to that, Jackie. In her free time, she loves the beach, dancing, writing, and doing arts and crafts. Welcome, Jacqueline Bottenbley. Nice.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, well, and I am honored and privileged to be in your anthologies.
Oh, we're thrilled to have you.
Yes, and like my fellow authors, I also have been writing, and since elementary school, my 5th grade teacher, who was a nun, turned me onto the printed word and poetry, and I've been in love with it ever since.
Oh, isn't that fabulous?
But I was fortunate to be in a household that I have had my own personal library ever since I was a child. So I have grown up with the printed word all the time, but I love, like I said, pretty much reading anything, and I get my inspiration from anything and everything, and sometimes the ideas come while I'm driving. For some unknown reason, there's a stretch of Meadowbrook Parkway that I get a lot of ideas on. I don't know what it is, but so I have pen and paper in my car. I have notebook and a pen and paper in my pocketbook. Sometimes I'll get an idea in the middle of the night and I keep a pen and paper on my night table. And since I have been writing since elementary school, I thought, I maybe have a notebook or 2 with some writing in it. I have about 4 notebooks completely packed with writing, plus loose leaf. And I always said, I want to get it on, I want to put it on the computer. I want to get it typed up. And I just kept putting it off. And now, thanks to your anthologies, they are getting typed and put on computer and printed.
I love that. Thank you.
And recently, not only did I find notebooks, I found 2 binders filled with writing as well. And as I read them, some of it I do remember writing, and I remember exactly where I was and what I was thinking. And some of it I think another person wrote. It must have been my alter ego, because I have no recollection of writing.
I love that picture that I have in my head of cleaning out drawers and finding poems and short stories. And I think Debbie's got a novel in a junk drawer somewhere too. That's just a great image.
Yeah. And as a teacher, I do love to inspire my students to write, and many of them are reluctant writers, but I try to pick up what they're interested in, whether that be cars or computers or Legos, and I tell them to just write whatever, and I especially teach them about brainstorming. I sometimes, if they're more artistic as far as the visual arts, I will tell them to draw a picture and write from the picture.
Fantastic. So I love this. We've got people coming from writing from the mechanical engineering point of view, and now from the educational point of view. We have a little bit of everything going on here. Fantastic. Our next guest, Hayley St. James, they, them, is a Boston born, usually New York based playwright and performer, and a graduate of Marymount Manhattan's College class of 2020. Congratulations.
Thank you, Stephanie.
A non-binary lesbian on the autism spectrum, they are deeply passionate about seeing themselves and their communities represented truthfully in all media, theater first and foremost. In their theatrical work, they strive to marry authentic representation with hyper theatrical, surreal, meta, and occasionally horny twists. They also have a thing for imaginary friends, ghosts, aliens, and well-handled pop culture references. Their plays include What a Piece of Work is Ham, which is a stoner comedy prequel to William Shakespeare's Hamlet, Too Hard a Knot, which is a 20-minute Bard-inspired dark comedy about the choices we make in this world, For Leonora, or A God-Awful Small Affair, which is a sad, hopeful, and sexually frank quarantine play starring the ghost of David Bowie. Welcome, Hayley.
Hi.
Wow, I
Thank
want to
you.
see some of those things, that's for sure.
Well, one of those actually, God Awful Small Affair, was just had a reading on YouTube in October, which is still up.
Congratulations. Can you please send me that link so I can share that around? Is that okay?
Oh, I shall.
Absolutely. Which one was that? The God Awful Affair one?
God Awful Small Affair. It's funny, you kind of combined For Leonora or Companions is another entirely separate play.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Which is totally okay. I have a lot of plays. It's fine.
That was the puppet-driven one, or was that Companions?
Yes, that is the puppet one. Yes, that is the puppet one.
I'm a fan of puppets, that's for sure.
Me too.
So tell me how you got your start as a playwright.
Well, for most of my life, I wanted to be an actor. I mean, I wrote too when I was younger, wrote a lot of fan fiction because I grew up during the era when like everybody wrote fan fiction. So I wrote a lot of fan fiction. I read a lot when I was a kid. I wrote a lot when I was a kid. But I wanted to be an actor for the longest time. And then when I started college and I declared my major as theater, I slowly realized that performing wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. And I realized that, wait, maybe I should actually write for the theater. I feel like my voice is going to be necessary. So I saw a ton of theater and just I've always been seeing theater as long as I've been alive, but I decided I think I need to start writing. And I have been for the past about 6 years now.
Oh, fantastic. Could you tell us a little bit about the difference between writing for the theater and writing a novel, a short story, something that is for a reader?
Yeah, well, the big thing with writing for the theater is it's not so much about describing everything that goes on. It's dialogue driven and there's stage directions. Whereas, writing a novel or a short story, you have to describe every little detail. The nice thing about theater is that the director, the designers, they can help create those worlds. You don't have to do that for them as a writer, unless like you're a very, very picky writer who's very like detail oriented. I like to let the designers and director play with whatever I give them. So I'm not as focused on that. I mean, stage directions, sure, but like I like to, let people explore and make my work their playground.
All right. I love the way that sounds. A question, is everything that's written for the theater, when you're writing a play, I mean, I assume the ideal is that there is a reading, a dramatization, that you have actors and stagehands and all those things. But tell us a little bit about reading plays also, because we do want to read plays, and more plays are available, like yours are occasionally available for a viewing, but more often than not, we would be able to read them. How should we
Yeah.
approach that as a reader?
Well, the nice thing about plays is that you can visualize them. And the thing is, if it's a play that's not like super, super stage direction heavy, you can imagine whatever the scenarios are with just the dialogue, which is always a lot of fun. I remember a couple years ago when they released the book version of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, which is a play and not based on an actual Harry Potter book. So it was published as a play script, and people got mad because like, oh, we wanted a new book. We wanted the 8th Harry Potter book. And like, no, this is a play script. Like the entire point of the play script is that this is how it's the dialogue that will be on stage and maybe some suggestions of how they will do the magic on stage. But if you want to actually like visualize it yourself, go ahead. But this is a piece that's meant to be seen. And that's the thing with most plays is like, yes, it's a wonderful reading experience, but it's enhanced by being able to see it.
And it's so funny that you mentioned Harry Potter, because the night that they shut down Broadway, guess who was holding 2 tickets to Harry Potter?
Oh no, I'm so
Yes.
sorry.
Yes,
God.
I was. And that night and the night after, I was supposed to see parts 1 and 2. So now, of course, I'm holding hundreds of dollars worth of, we hope that it'll be good for something in the future.
I think it'll come back. I mean, we'll come back. The industry, that's the biggest thing with being a playwright right now, is that my industry is dead right now. I mean, the publishing industry, thank God, is still, quite booming because people need things to read, which is kind of one of the few benefits of living in these troubled times, is that people want to read, and there's book sales have been up, which is great. But as a theater artist, my industry, just everything is shut down. I had to move back to Massachusetts. I'm currently in Massachusetts. I'm normally living in New York City, even though I'm from Boston, but I'm back in Boston, and just not being able to really go to the theater or support unless people are doing like the fundraising things like for the Actors Fund or whatnot. It's been pretty much impossible to, really do what I love. And so I've been just spending most of the time writing. And I mean, it's the best thing to do.
Well, I know that you would much rather be producing plays than writing and submitting, but the Red Penguin Collection is thrilled that you have some time on your hands to be submitting plays to us, because we are always happy to have them, believe me.
I mean, I love having an outlet to have my work for. It's been a gift. I'm really grateful for JK reaching out and saying, hey, I think we might be interested in your stuff. I'm like, thanks, JK, because JK is a school friend of mine. And I'm
thrilled to have it, and it adds such a different dimension to the work, which is something that I desperately wanted with this collection, that different styles and genres were going to be butt right up against each other. We even had discussions at the beginning whether certain types of poetry was going to be in one section and certain. I said no. I want people who are used to, say, a more traditional read. I want their stuff to be right next to the fun way you explained yours, and the sexually frank quarantine play starring David Bowie. Yeah, that's got to be right next to something else so that people are exposed to both sides. So
yeah,
really thank you for that. That's been
no, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Now, please promise me that when the quarantine is over, and it will be, and the theaters open up again, keep sending me your stuff.
That's all I can do.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
That's what we want. We want to keep having that theatrical bent in there. Our next guest, Jim Tritten, is a retired Navy pilot who lives in a small village in New Mexico with his Danish artist, author, wife, and 4 cats. Welcome, Jim. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Jacqueline. If I would have known a longer bio was a good idea, I'll have a 168-page curriculum vitae I'll send you, and then you can summarize it as you see fit.
For the next book, you can send me a longer bio, because
no, I just use the short one. That's what I traditionally. But you took away everything I was going to say, except that I am not originally from New Mexico. And so the challenge for all of you linguists is to figure out what state am I from, given my accent. So I got a late start writing. I didn't start till high school. I do write in multiple genres. In fact, it's probably easier to figure out which ones I don't write in than it is to figure out which ones I do write in. I do children's books with my wife, historical fiction, horror, memoir, mystery, romance, lots of other things. My most current foray into a new genre was what brought me to Red Penguin Books in the Moments. I had never written anything spiritual, and yet I had something happen to me, it's real, that was quite extraordinary, and I wanted to get it out there to a larger audience. And so I took a chance and sent it off to your groups, and thank you very much for publishing it. When I'm not writing spiritual, I have actually written some recent poetry. I had a adventure story published in October, Panama's Gold. I have a romance coming out in 2 weeks, Love and Lies. And I just today sent 9 beta readers a copy of a mystery set in New Mexico called Fatal Meeting.
Fantastic. And no, I'm not placing the accent.
Good.
Any out there who could place that accent? I mean, you don't sound like you're from Brooklyn or something, so.
When I went through flight training, they put us in a room, I had a tape recorder, pushed the tape recorder on, and it said, everybody, you got to lose your accents because you're going to be flying all over the world and people need to understand you. So I did.
So you were successful, but where are you originally from?
You can't tell?
I can't, and I don't know.
Nobody want to take a guess?
No guesses out there?
I'll take a guess. I'm gonna try Chicago or Minnesota.
Okay.
Okay.
So the actual answer, and I'll put my real accent back on, is Yonkers, New York.
Really?
Really?
And I'll never go back there.
Where is Yonkers, New York?
Yonkers is right north of the Bronx. The Bronx.
Oh, Yonkers. Oh, see,
Oh, you changed the accent since I moved.
Sorry. Well, no, I'm from Queens, so.
Yes, I heard everybody else up there looks like they're from New York.
Most yes, some, Bill, Bill, where are you actually from?
Queens.
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 Queens, yeah. Yeah, we got that New York accent going over here. Generally, if I travel around the country, and I love to travel, all I have to do is walk in and say hi, and instantly, oh, so you're from New York. That's all it takes.
We get a lot of that out in New Mexico. This is a dumping ground for the Witness Protection Program. You run into the guys up in Rio Rancho and my little village, and you go, so what brought you here, Guido? And, oh, the weather.
Love that. Well, let's hear another accent here. Our next guest is Christina Hoag. Christina Hoag is the author of 2 novels, Girl on the Brink, which was named to Suspense Magazine's Best Young Adult list, and Skin of Tattoos, a Silver Falchion Award finalist. She also co-authored the nonfiction book, Peace in the Hood, Working with Gang Members to End the Violence. That sounds a little terrifying to research there. A former journalist, she reported from Latin America for Time, Financial Times, the New York Times, and other media. Her short stories and essays have been published in numerous literary journals, and she recently won honorable mentions for essay and short story in the International Human Rights Arts Festival Literary Awards 2020. Welcome, Christina. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie. And I'm bummed JK isn't here. I wanted to meet him too.
Next time we'll be able to grab him. I think he had another stream going tonight, and as I said, I gave you no notice. So, so Christina, you come to us from the journalistic end. So we have people who are coming from the technical end, from the educational end, from the dramatic end, and you are our resident journalist here tonight.
Yeah, it's funny how, as everyone's going around, I can detect themes coming out, and like the other, many of the others, I I won a little prize when I was about 5 years old for writing interesting stories. I have no idea what I wrote. Could barely do my letters, but it got the teacher's attention that it was interesting. And that's all I've ever wanted to be, was a writer. And in high school, I discovered journalism, and I thought, that's a career. I can write and I can travel. And so that's what I became, as a journalist. I was a newspaper reporter in New Jersey for quite a few years. And then I sort of started, my dream was to be a foreign correspondent. So I went abroad to Latin America and was based out of Caracas, Venezuela for 7 years. And we'd go around, reporting on stories and whoever would buy them, whether it was the Miami Herald or the Financial Times, Sunday Times of London, a whole bunch of different publications.
So you would write first and sell second?
Sometimes, or otherwise, or I'd get assignments from them to go different places, or I would usually pitch them an idea. They'd say, yeah, we're interested in seeing that. So it went both ways.
Right. Tell me a little bit about this book that you, the Working with Gang Members book. That's a little frightening. Was that a research book that you had to do in interviews and such?
Yeah, I did that in Los Angeles. I now live in California, and I worked for the Associated Press as a reporter. And one of the things I did a lot of reporting on was gangs. LA is the gang capital of the country. And I interviewed this guy named Akil Bashir, and he's what you call a gang interventionist, which is he works directly on the street between these warring rival gangs for them not to take retaliatory action against the other gang, because it's basically a cycle of retaliation that goes back and forth. So anyway, we teamed up and wrote this book. I was basically the writer. It was his material, and I did a lot of other interviews. So it was used as a number of universities have picked it up, UCLA, University of Southern California and whatnot, for different sociology, classes and things like that. Yeah.
Well, Christina, we New Yorkers love to hear that LA is the gang capital of the country. We thought it was here. So you've made our day.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yes, unfortunately it is here. So yeah, and so I've really enjoyed, I write short stories as well. I'm working on a mystery novel right now. And, I write short stories, essays. I've written a couple, 2 screenplays, poetry. My main thing is fiction. That's my first love, but like everybody here, I've done a bit of dabbling in many genres and romance and, YA.
Right. Is there a genre that you haven't written in yet, but maybe 2021 is your year?
No, well, my 2021, I want to finish this mystery novel. It's been, the thing about novels is they're just such long, wieldy projects. It's just they go on, and you keep revising. It's just a long process. But so that's why I like doing shorter projects in between sometimes, just so I can actually finish something. I can say, okay, it's finished.
Yes.
As you work on these book length projects, the long things.
And I know for myself, if I'm working on something that's long, I like those shorter ones, like you said, like a feeling of accomplishment. Sometimes you just have to feel like you did something.
Yeah, and I guess, otherwise, and to tell other people too that you finished something, and they're like, oh, you're still working on that novel? It's like,
Okay, not nearly as long as, was it Margaret Mitchell with 10 years for Gone with the Wind?
Yeah, exactly. Some people.
And how long has he been writing the next book in the Game of Thrones series? George Martin?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, they take a lot of work.
Yeah, they're a lot of work. They are a lot of work, but you're not even close to as long as those people yet, so I wouldn't worry about it. Well, I'm thrilled that anytime you have some short stuff, feel free to send it our way. That's for sure.
I will.
Our next guest, Shannon Frost Greenstein, resides in Philadelphia with her children, soulmate, and stubborn cats. We've got a whole bunch of cat people on our call today. She is the author of Pray for Us Sinners, a forthcoming fiction collection from Alien Buddha Press, and More, a poetry collection from Wild Pressed Books. Shannon is a pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominee, a contributing editor for Barron Magazine, and a former PhD candidate in continental philosophy. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in McSweeney's Internet Tendency, Pithead Chapel, X-Ray Lit Magazine, Cabinet of Heed, Ellipse Zine, Storgy Mag, Lunate Fiction, Door is Ajar, and elsewhere. Welcome, Shannon. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, such a thrill to have you. And how many cats do you have? Are you beating out Debbie here?
We only have the 2. There is a moratorium on more cats in my family, apparently. I've been told.
I understand that. I have 2 also, but one is so big, I think sometimes she counts as more than one.
They go up exponentially the more cats you get. It's just the cumulative effect seems like more. I think
does.
it's the litter.
And at some point, I'm wondering where that line is that you become a crazy cat person. So
it's like an event horizon. Once you go over the singularity, there's just no coming back.
No coming back. So a Philadelphia native. Is that where you were originally from?
Yes, I'm originally from the Delaware Valley, right on the border of Pennsylvania and Delaware, and I went a bit away for school and then came back and moved to the city, and I'm a city mouse now.
Fantastic, fantastic. And you couldn't guess the accent either, so we knew.
No, I really couldn't. I thought Northeast, but people do a great deal to both reveal where they come from and mask where they come from, depending on their situation. So I always wait to hear.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about how you got your start in writing. Are you too a 5-year-old award winner with your first piece?
I most certainly am not. I never thought writing would be a profession or a proclivity or anything to that effect. I trained as a ballerina and then trained as a philosopher, and then grad school came to it at a time that was just not mentally or physically or emotionally the right time to pursue a PhD. So I came home and started writing fiction for lack of anything better to do. And I had a rather atypical experience. The first thing I wrote, I submitted and it was accepted and it won a contest. And I thought, oh, that's what writing is like. You just write things down and then you win and everybody reads it and you get a lot of validation. And it was
beginner's luck is sometimes not a good thing, is it?
It really wasn't. It was then a several-year dry spell, and I almost stopped several times because that initial burst of like, this is great, followed by like, oh, this is just relentless trudging work. It was hard to sit with that until I started honing my skills a little bit. But now it's an outlet and a passion and what everyone else has said and then some.
Shannon, you are the first person in my life who has ever used the word went from a ballerina to a philosopher or somewhat in the same sentence.
Well, I guess it has something to do with being a perfectionist and wanting to know how things work and why things work, which you can both explore artistically and physically and academically. But I think it all just involves finding what your path is. And some of us are later bloomers than others. But when you find it, you know.
And you know. So what's next on your writing hit parade? What are you working on now?
I'm working, in addition to a few short stories, I'm working on a full-length nonfiction memoir about eating disorder recovery, which I'm a NEDA, which is the National Eating Disorders Association ambassador. And I have some experience with the subject, both of myself and family members. So I'm writing both a first-person account of treatment and what friends, family, and loved ones of people with eating disorders may appreciate knowing during rough times.
Wow. Thank you for doing that. That's a huge issue with people.
It's almost written, but now there's editing. So I'll see you in 10 years.
And that's the trudgery.
That's the trudgery.
That's absolutely the trudgery. Well, thank you for joining us so much. And our final guest is William John Rostron, who is a Queens boy, that's for sure. But now he splits his time between his home in Long Island and traveling the country in his Tiffin motorhome. When he's not writing, he is busy completing a bucket list of travel adventures. In the past 16 years, he and his wife, Marilyn, have traveled 120,000 miles, 48 contiguous states, 133 national parks, all 30 Major League baseball stadiums. 154 cities and towns, 2 Canadian provinces, and I guess I'll say on a partridge in a pear tree. There's a whole lot of stuff there. He recently completed a trilogy of novels steeped in the music and culture of the late 20th and early 21st centuries, Band in the Wind, Sound of Redemption, and Brotherhood of Forever, which have each received critical acclaim. He was also presented an award by Nelson DeMille for his historic fiction short story, The Last Artifact. Previously, Bill was a teacher and taught students from the age of 9 to 90, elementary, middle school, high school, college, adult education, and teacher training. So welcome, Bill Rostron. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. And I wanted to start by saying thank you for your service to David and Jim. Since my son was in Afghanistan years ago, I try to remember to say that every time I see a veteran. So thanks, guys. It's funny because when I go to all those places where we travel on motorhome, I only have to say one word and they go, New York, huh? Yeah, I mean, we're so obvious. Okay. I started writing when I was 27 years old, later than everybody else. I was vice president of a board of education, and I got very angry at the way people were talking about the school board elections and the budget votes. And I sat down to write a very serious letter to Newsday. It ended up that I found myself being sarcastic and funny and not taking it seriously because it was almost like a sporting event to me. So what I did was I sent it to Newsday anyway, and they paid me for it. I go, I didn't get paid for this. For the next 35 years, I wrote basically nonfiction on education and policy issues and things like that, trying to put a little humor in them. When I retired, I sat down to write that great American novel, and for 4 years, nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, I had an illness and I had to do a lot of walking, and I would sit listening to music from the 60s. And every time I heard a song, it would give me a little piece of a plot. And I sat down and I said, okay, let me put these pieces together. And I ended up with a 700-page book. Didn't know it till I was done. I ended up editing, making it shorter. I said, oh, that was fun. And I went to put it away. And a friend said, you know, let me read it. And he said, this is really as good. Still didn't have any confidence in my writing. And what I did was there was a program called Visible Ink, and it's for writers, and they give you a mentor, and there's about 3,000 people involved. I submitted a little bit of the book, a chapter that could stand alone as a short story. And they not only published it as one of 80 that were put in there, but they put it on stage with actors from Broadway reading it and acting it out. And I said, maybe this is okay. And that gave me the confidence to go ahead with the books. The next 2 years, they did 2 more. And during the pandemic, they invited me to write a short piece about the pandemic. And Emmy and Tony Award nominee Victor Garber read it on the streaming television show. The first time it's in print is in the upcoming We Made It of Red Penguin Books. Right. When I finished the trilogy, I said, what do I do now? And that's when it came. I'm sorry, I'm losing power. And that's when it came about that I saw the Red Penguin. Can you hear me and see me?
We can hear you, but not see you.
Okay. My battery died while I was waiting here. Anyway, I'm here.
We can still hear you. That's good.
Okay. So the Red Penguin books offered me an opportunity to submit a short piece that was too long for anything else. And it went into the trip for the books. And it's one of my favorite pieces of all time. And I never had any place to put it. It was a true story that I couldn't write for 30 years because it was just too hard. my family had an accident in 1989, in which we almost all died. Now, that doesn't sound like something very interesting to read, except that after the first 5 minutes, it actually became a comedy. The things that happened to us in South Carolina as Northerners having an accident, from the point of them giving my wife a ticket after in her stretcher, was just unbelievable experience. And I couldn't write it because it was so hard. It was, I mean, there was a certain point for about 10 minutes where we thought that one of the members of my family had passed away. And in the end, no one was really hurt. My daughter had been thrown from the van, and we found her 50 feet away, perfectly healthy. But until we found her, it was a very tough moment. Again, from that moment on, it was a comedy. And I said, let me submit this to Red Penguin. And for the next 5 books, I submitted things, and I said, it's a good outlet while I'm working on my next 2 books to do it.
Delighted to have you submitting, believe me. And if we could take your tragedies into comedies, this is an even better.
Yes, and that piece happened to be put into the best of issue. So
look at that. So it must have been a good one. Well,
yes.
While I have you all on here, I know that the next several books and themes are already set. We've had themes ranging from, as Bill said, a trip for the books, which was travel stories, horror, science fiction, spirituality, all sorts of things. I want to ask, since we have our best of the best here on our show, what themes would you like us to do? As I said, I know that they're already set from now until probably March or April, but what are you thinking would be a good theme? Anyone have any ideas for us?
Science fiction seems to be lacking. We should have more science fiction.
Science fiction. We did have a science fiction book, but we'll have more. I think there's a fantasy one coming up also.
I was going to say mystery or crime. There so far hasn't been a mystery or crime anthology.
Right.
Yeah, that was what I was going to suggest. I haven't seen a mystery listed.
And that's definitely right up your alley, Debbie. Okay, so mystery and crime, more sci-fi, because we didn't get enough sci-fi the first time. What else are we missing that we want to be doing?
I would say romance, as far as unrequited love's chased after. People who keep making the same dumb mistakes in romance, going after the wrong people.
Well, that seems to be everybody I know, but there is a romance book. I believe it is set to be released on Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. Of course, okay. All things. So there is a romance book coming up. There is I saw a couple of other ones that were in the mix. Hayley, did you have a good idea for a theme?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like a nice, like, a play collection, like one with just plays would be nice, obviously.
I knew you were gonna say that. There is a book coming up which is purely monologues.
Monologues, which I plan to submit for, but.
Okay, but so you want multiple person plays too?
What about paranormal or time travel or
that's a good idea.
Something in that type of theme?
That's a good idea. I like the paranormal idea. And I know there's a recipe book coming up next also. So food and food stories are coming up. So, well, now you're all committed. So now when that theme comes up, whether it's the multi-person play or the unrequited love, or whatever it might be, you are committed. I can't thank you enough for all of the fabulous writing, and I hope that all of our viewers tonight grab a copy of Standout, the best of Red Penguin collection, plus all these other ones. And you're going to see in all of our things that are going out, as well as on the website, links to all of our authors and writers and poets have websites and social media links so that you can follow them and connect with them and follow their trajectory and read some more stuff. So thank you for joining us on Between the Covers. Happy
Thank you for having us, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Happy writing and happy reading to all of our viewers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Between the Covers. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're an author who would be interested in appearing on our show, or perhaps you're a member of a book club, we do host book clubs as well, please visit betweenthecoverstv.com. By the way, at betweenthecoverstv.com, you can watch past episodes in addition to learning more about our authors and guests. So sign up there if you would like to be a guest on the show yourself. And if you have some books that you would like to get written or published, visit redpenguinbooks.com. Thanks so much for joining us.